Are GCCs acting as catalysts for groundbreaking solutions, or do they encounter bottlenecks that slow down their progress? This session will explore both sides of the equation, highlighting the successes, challenges, and unique value that GCCs bring to the table. Now, let's welcome on stage our expert panelists to take us through this wonderful session. We have with us today Anil Kumar M, Senior Director and Site Leader at Baxter R&D Bengaluru; John Dawber, Corporate Vice President and Managing Director at Novo Nordisk; Samim Brahma, Head of Biogen Capability Center, India; Rishi, Seth, Senior Director APAC at Fractal.AI. And this discussion will be moderated by Joydeep Ghosh, partner at Deloitte, India. Let's welcome them all with a huge round of applause, please. Over to you, Mr. Ghosh.
Very much. We start this panel with a good segue from the previous one, which ended with some discussion on genome sequencing and how the cost has come down and everything. All the things which are happening in the life sciences sector. And this is probably the sector which is closest to our hearts, literally. You know, it talks about ourselves, a machine we understand not so well, but that's okay. Today we have a distinguished panel with us to talk about how some of those advancements are happening. We start with also a moral responsibility of standing between all of you and lunch. So we'll try to make it as short, crisp, and informative, impactful as possible. Quick opening remarks. The GCC landscape in India is expanding at a fast and furious pace, and life science healthcare occupies about 15% of that by the latest count, something like 35 to 40 GCCs already opening and coming up and expanding from in various areas. Obviously, the low-hanging fruit are the corporate functions, the enabling functions like finance and HR and IT. But already the GCCs have moved beyond that to drug discovery and obviously AI-enabled methods of delivery and protocols, as well as even wet R&D. However, there are a myriad factors which can make or mar the objectives of setting up a GCC. A huge amount of trust and credibility important, though we all know that our government and our infrastructural policies are all conducive towards hosting more and more global operations out of this country. There are still a lot of factors to deal with. And this is where I look upon our esteemed panel today to sort of unravel for us in plain, simple English how some of those factors need to work out to benefit the growth of those GCCs. I'll start with Anil. Anil is the Senior Director and Site Leader of Baxter R&D in Bangalore. So Anil, tell us how you have evolved from driving corporate enabling functions to driving R&D innovation. In what way you find that some of the more core functions like R&D and manufacturing can even be moved? Is it really serious? I mean, are they really serious about moving those functions? They are very core operation functions to India. Is it challenging or rewarding? And how does even complex science and technology even lend itself to such borderless innovation?
Thank you, Joydeep. Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, I think from the rest of the conversations that are happening about the financial sector, the various things, but when you come to human body, I think the core of engineering and science and technology become paramount. And if you look at the journey, Joydeep, in fact, when we started, we talk about, everyone should be in the transformational space. So when we, in fact, started Baxter, we looked at not building the operational trust, but how do we directly go to build strategic trust? In fact, when teams came and said, the leadership said, hey, put up this 20-member team here in Bangalore, we said no. What was important was to have the courage to say no. And we told the organization, give us a problem you could not solve. A strategic problem that you could not solve. And if we are not able to solve it, then let's not have this organization. That is where it started. And that actually led to the organization rethinking what should be their strategy right? I mean, given the complexity of the products. And then that was a great beginning we had. And we set up a team. It took us 18 months to, show what that we can demonstrate given what the market offers here. And that there was no, turning back from that point on. Now, coming to your second part of the question, Joydeep, looking at the deeper science and technology and the innovations, there is so much possible. In fact, Baxter is uniquely positioned because we operate both in the diagnostic space and the therapeutic space. There are very less companies in the world that look at both sides of a human life, and hence, how can you save a life? In fact, all diagnostic guys want to go to therapy guy want to come to diagnostic because there's the market of a continuum, but Baxter, incidentally, is there. So I actually see it as a T model, of innovation that's happening. If you look at the bane of healthcare is interoperability. You can book a flight ticket from here to go to anywhere across airlines and book hotels in one click. But couple of devices that are there in healthcare, your CT or MRI or X-ray systems, the data cannot talk to each other and give you an insight to save a life when you're in the ICU. All right, so a big element that's happening, in fact, that we are also working on is to see how we build that breadth of connected care, right? I mean, you can, because we look at diagnostics, cardiology diagnostics, respiratory diagnostics, we own operating rooms, we own the pumps, and we own nutrition. So how you can, let's say, for a particular disease, cut across all of this and look at connected care is a huge focus of innovation and can save multiple lives across the globe and in India. And another dimension that's happening is, I mean, all of us, the doctors tell us that your blood pressure is 120 by 80, right? I mean, how would you know it's the correct blood pressure for you? Actually, no one knows. It's an average. What if your blood pressure is 130 by 90? Maybe you're okay having that blood pressure. Imagine we're talking AI, Gen AI, and all of this, but we still don't know the answer to this question. All right? So there's a lot to do in this space by going into personalized care, which is actually what the future of care is. That is the depth model, that we are looking at, and hence, how can you go deeper into a human being? Right? We talk a lot, and at times we even don't understand the blood. What does blood have? What are the constituents? Maybe we do a blood test and understand the 5 elements, but there's so much more to do, and hence we actually operating at that intersection of connecting devices as well as going deep into personalized care.
Yeah. So the important thing, I guess, what we understand from your remarks, Anil, is that you have been able to achieve in the global organization, the GCC itself, a position not of operating or tactical trust, but strategic trust. You want to spend like 30 seconds on that?
Yeah, I think, as I said, when we formed the initial organization and looked at it and co-created this whole thing, and as we are all talking, right, we said, hey, we need to scale the organization. And a lot of times we say, how do we kind of do that? When we created the organization, we said the global teams will be responsible for the local teams. We actually flipped the coin. It's no longer the global teams and the local teams reporting here. When we said, hey, the global teams, these teams are yours that are there in this location, and we were able to work with the leaders to pivot the mind shift, saying that, hey, this is your team. All right? That is how it enabled us to pivot on that very element of how do you create trust and establish an organization here. So that was very beneficial.
Yeah. So skipping you, John, in the interest of the sequence we discussed. In fact, this is like a continuation panel discussion. We were having a discussion outside even as well. So Samim, over to you. How has the talent landscape for the GCC in India evolved? Because you had the Biogen Capability Center here in India, and it is pretty much going through the growth pangs, if I understand. Very young, very new. How do you balance attracting the top STEM talent in this country, retaining them, while you still manage the cost efficiencies? Does technology help?
Great question. Thanks, Joydeep, and it's great to be here. Both me and my company, Biogen Capability Center India, or BCCI, please don't get confused. We don't have like IPL tickets though. We are new to India, so I'll share my outside-in perspective, okay? So when we were evaluating GCC just a couple of years back, the driver was always talent. Cost is a factor, but the driver has always been availability of talent. And there, India has become a default destination. It wasn't the case. When we attempted like 6-7 years ago, it was certainly not the case. And thanks to the credibility established by Novo Nordisk, Baxter, and many other companies here, that's like a table stake now. The other aspect, I feel there are many companies like ours, life science companies, who are at a point of inflection, be it due to the evolving pipeline, the challenges or, the changing healthcare and economic policies, or even the AI revolution. The expectation from GCC beyond talent is two things. One is agility, how quick we can pivot, and our scalability. And this is where I feel India has a unique advantage with relatively, younger, diverse workforce. You can build a culture of agility from day one. Now, going to your second question around retention over cost efficiency, I think everyone would agree the critical success factor for GCC is how soon we can move away from the cost efficiency discussion, right? The efficiencies that you're bringing this year is going to be baseline for next year. So you can't show incremental value. And that's where how soon the GCC can transform to generating value is important. And for that, attracting and retaining talent is highly important. So in Biogen, we use our strategy is around 3 pillars. Okay, it's a purpose, growth, and flexibility. And previous panelists were also talking about it. It's important to make them understand why their work is important. And today's generation, they really care about that, like whether the work they're delivering is aligned to their value system. And sometimes like GCC, which are so distant from where the value is generating, it's difficult to see that. And as leaders, I think it's our responsibility and opportunity to instill that. The second is around growth, right? Like with the rapid expansion of technology, how we can create a platform for cross-training or give a platform for both horizontal and vertical growth to the workforce. And the last thing I would say is flexibility. I mean, we have to accept that the world is very different now. The expectations are different. We can't shy away from that. Like in Biogen, as an example, we have certain positions that are remote first, and which allows us not only to attract more talent locally, but across India. And with that, naturally comes, cultural diversity and gender diversity. So that's our strategy around it, is focus on these 3 pillars.
Thank you, Samim. I think that's a very important point which you make, the diversity. And this is where I turn to you, John. You have led teams across many countries, Japan, Korea, China, whatever, Thailand, and also now in India. You are the Vice President and Managing Director of Novo Nordisk. In your experience, how do you bring that culture of collaboration and trust, which is so essential in a distributed work environment, particularly that which deals with complex science, technology, lots of kinds of media, some of them, very esoteric nature, like, understanding an image or certain sequences or expressions of certain genes. How do you manage this?
Thank you very much. And again, thank you for the wonderful opportunity to be part of this panel and to be part of this esteemed group. Yeah, as a Brit who's lived in 5 countries, one gets to be a little bit of a student of this kind of stuff. And every day is a school day for me, so it's a continuous learning. That's the first thing. Maybe the question sort of elicits the initial response, which I use as a mantra for all our colleagues here or anywhere in the world or our global organization, and it's the old Stephen Covey thing of seek first to understand before being understood. And if we kind of stick that in our head, then we can start to collaborate nicely across boundaries and across cultures. There are probably 3 things that come from that, which for me, it's become quite an obsession. They're rather obvious, but you need to obsess about them. The first one is communication. What do I mean by that? I mean explaining to our employees here the why behind everything. So taking the corporate messages, whatever they are, taking the new chemical entities that we're producing, taking the research, explaining the why behind all the decisions that the company's doing. And similarly to all our affiliate countries, we serve about 80 countries out of our GCC plus the headquarters, explaining the why to them about the rationale and the way we do things in India. So this first thing is communication. The second thing is, as I mentioned at the beginning, to be a student of culture, to really deeply understand the behaviors that manifest themselves in a Danish organization versus a UK organization versus an Indian organization. And one of the biggest parts of my job is to be able to build that bridge and explain that, just because the Danes are constantly asking us questions and challenging us, it doesn't mean they don't like us, right? For that kind of culture, it's task versus relationship, over relationship. Whereas here, of course, it tends to be relationship prior to task. So really deeply understanding the cultural differences and nuances and being able to articulate those to all of us. And the third thing, and we were all discussing this a little bit in our pre-meeting, is purpose. For any health sciences company, somewhere we are all here because we're obsessed with doing good for a patient and doing good probably for a doctor and therefore for a patient. And being able to anchor ourselves, whether we're a sales rep in Thailand or a marketeer in Germany or a biostatistician sitting behind me in our office in the Cygnus facility, understanding that what we're doing today is going to have an impact on a patient or a doctor tomorrow is really, really important. So being able to be obsessed with the company purpose allows us to unite all of these cultural differences and these geographic differences and language differences.
Absolutely. I think purpose is the key. I mean, that's what drives the organizations to global success together, multiple countries, but united by purpose. However, John, I mean, we can't talk to someone so senior from Novo Nordisk without talking about blockbusters. But we'll not go into the details of the blockbusters, but we'll ask a related question. How do you see the life sciences GCCs helping the local commercial operations of the geos in which they operate, particularly which is a very different nature of market, low insurance penetration and things like that, like India is. How do the GCCs also play a strategic role for the local geo operations?
Thank you. We won't get into brands and all of that stuff, but it's a super interesting question. So I've been lucky enough to do both jobs, right? I now lead the GCC. Prior to this, I was a general manager of an affiliate elsewhere. So the primary role of an affiliate is, of course, to drive commercial success. So the more resources one can employ into the front line, the better. And the faster and more agile we can be at the front line in the interface between the company and the doctor, the better. And the more insights we can generate from not only locally, but around the world, to be able to make those interactions between a company employee and a doctor better is a big bonus. So the great thing that we have here in India, and we're very lucky, is we've got a very successful affiliate business, and then we've got a very large GCC that runs all the processes from drug development through to clinical trial work, through to regulatory, through to medical affairs, through to pharmacovigilance, through to global marketing, through to insights generation. And the closer we can then work with the affiliate team, and we do super strong collaboration, allows our affiliate team to be the most competitive they can be at that customer interface. So it's a real privilege to have both organizations. And my colleague Vikrant, who runs the affiliate organization, and I probably speak every day about how we can make him more competitive in this competitive blockbuster world that you talk about.
Thank you, John, for sharing that insight. This is a less highlighted aspect of an impact a GCC makes in India, because particularly in life sciences, we have to understand that the capabilities and products and services which an international large player like Novo Nordisk or others bring to the market for the India actually has the potential to serve 1/6 of humanity, which is India. So this cooperation is very key, one of the less highlighted aspects. So I requested John to answer that. Moving to Rishi. Rishi is Senior Director APAC for Fractal.AI. Most of you are already know all about Cure AI and other things, but I want to ask Rishi specifically in the context of life sciences, how does AI and related technologies help the life sciences GCCs move up the value chain from corporate enabling functions to core functions, and how those can help improve R&D and manufacturing by making things better, faster, cheaper?
Thanks, Joydeep. Great to be part of this panel. And Joydeep, you have ensured that I'm literally, amongst all of us, the last man standing between us and lunch. So I'll ensure that no, the moral responsibility that you gave to us in the beginning, I cater to that. Now, coming to your question, I'll try to answer it from three perspectives: tech, business, and people. Because when you say that, how can AI or any other technology help us move up the value chain? The first thing is, okay, what can tech do? And in the earlier panel also, we heard them that drug discovery, right? How can you make it faster by ensuring that the entire biomarker discovery process is becoming faster? And we saw examples where figures were given that it has been reduced to 50% and it might go down to 20%. And we were just discussing, John, before the panel also, this is something that you are seeing happening. So AI is really helping in the drug discovery becoming cheaper. The cheaper it gets, the more you can invest, right? Not just that, one is drug discovery becoming cheaper and faster. It's also helping us discover new kind of molecules. So there is an entire focus area, like we have generative AI, we have generative chemical models, right? What it is doing is trying to generate new models or even sometimes novel molecules which today don't exist, which will eventually help us solve and identify cure to diseases which is yet to be identified. In fact, maybe few of us will know that the Nobel Prize Award in Chemistry in the year 2024 was given to someone together with AlphaFold 2, which was primarily in this field, which is in the area of generative chemical model, right? That how can you focus on identifying and the protein structure folding. So that is how AI is actually helping in faster drug discovery, new drug discovery. And at the end with this, it is leading towards personalized healthcare, personalized, we all talk about personalized finance, personalized marketing, but a big area for all of us is personalized healthcare, which is targeted to the individual basis, the data that you have. So that is the AI part. Second part is that, okay, technology is there, it can help you move faster, cheaper, better. But the business part of it, right? And we were talking about in the morning also having a seat in the table, voice at the table, influencing the table. But at the end, we have to earn it. We were discussing about it. Then one way to earn is that as partners, as GCCs, how can we move and try to shift, focus on business KPIs? And then the entire focus is not on input-based, like what we are providing in terms of services and people, but outcome-based. And Anil, you referred to it, right? When you started your setup, you were talking about the strategic initiatives, give me problem which nobody can solve, right? Which was really outcome driven, right? So input to output and eventually outcome. And as long as those outcomes are tied to your larger business objectives, your seat on the table, you will firm it. You will eventually move up the value chain because you are delivering results and business is seeing the value. So I would say that's the mindset, that's the narrative we need to change from input to outcome. And third part, right, I'll maybe give that just tech, business, but the human part, right? At the end, we all are humans. It boils down to how we are able to build the behavioral science muscle within GCC, within the organizations. I'll give a very small example. Through AI, we were able to, in 2016, launch an excellent product which is able to do, we call it Cure.AI, which is able to scan the X-rays, and with a very high level of accuracy, tell you, if there is a probability of tuberculosis or lung nodes. And the accuracy was so high that we were sure that this will be a success. But what we realized when it was not being adopted by different hospitals, that though it's an excellent technology, but the behavioral part of it was not taken care. So we ensured there is a behavioral scientist who spends entire day in the life of a physician, who understand that the life is so busy they don't even have time to go to a different screen and look at the results. So we have to just make a simple tweak of ensuring that the results come to them in whatever summary report that they're looking at. And that ensured that it's become the success. So looking at the behavioral element and how we can think about it as a muscle that we need to build together when we're talking about technology will ensure that we are continuously moving up the value chain, keeping human at center. So I think these are 3 key points.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Why AI is so incredibly important, you'll understand if I explain to you that the human body has about 40 trillion cells and only about 1,200 druggable proteins. Since the time FDA started keeping records in the early 1900s, what we have discovered is probably new chemical entities, mostly around 1,500 or so. And if you remove the overlaps, we'll probably in the 300 to 400. So it is actually an incredible amount of work that goes into, an incredible amount of human intelligence that goes into understanding the biochemical pathways and creating a pill that sits on the top of your head and top of your hand, and then goes to do what it's supposed to do at only a particular place in the human body and keeping others unaffected. It's an incredibly difficult process, and it's incredibly challenging to all those scientists and clinicians who discover and administer those drugs. So the use of AI is really important in that field. I just wanted to stress that point. I know we are coming to a close, but I'll make quick fire. A single question I'll ask to each one of you in sequence to answer, please. What is the one advice you would want to give to a scientist in India or even aspiring scientist, let me say a STEM student, or to Indian regulators or even the policymakers that will help growing the industry in India and the globe, and India becoming a global innovation hub, having a strategic intent and seat at the table with the global pharma biggies? Anil, starting with you.
I think from a scientist's viewpoint, I think what is critical in my view is integrative thinking. I know, let's say, go to a hospital, there's a cardiologist, there's an eye person, there's an orthopedist, but my fundamental question that comes is who understands us as a human being, right? The whole body. And I see this problem whenever I go to the hospital. So I think scientists should go from, the componentized thinking to integrative thinking. From regulators, I think maybe I see maybe they can work a lot more closer with the industry. I think which is, I feel, being, let's say all the healthcare majors in the world are in Bangalore, right? If you look at it. So Bangalore is a center where people across, all the practices across the world can be represented here. But how much is that being, leveraged as an industry? I think we can change that, yeah?
Yes, John, at the risk of the GMT meridian, zero meridian being moved to Bangalore, if you can give your comments as well, John, would be nice.
So I know Anil covered it all, right? But so I'm going to take a slightly different dimension, and I'm going to take it in a sort of a behavioral way, right? So we all hear and we all talk about demanding a seat at the table. I'm not into demanding a seat at the table. I'm into earning a seat at the table. Now that's slightly different, and it means that what I'd encourage you all to do, and all academia to do, and when we're hiring new colleagues, is encourage them to speak up, to challenge, to ask why, to ask when, to ask how, and not tolerate this hierarchical thing that we've lived with for hundreds of years. If we ask why, and we challenge, and we speak up, and we come up with all the ideas, the seat at the table is earned, and then we grow.
Well said. Samim, over to you.
Yeah, my message to the new players are, it's not about a rapid expansion, right? Like, how do you find 1 or 2 areas where we can instantly add value, whether it's operational efficiencies, whether it's technology or agility in execution. You find those areas and build your capabilities around that. I think we all have India has the talent and capabilities to do it. We just need to have a focused execution to be the leader in this space.
Rishi?
Again, the last man standing, quick response, integrate behavioral science in life science.
Fantastic. So I think we had a engaging panel discussion. We discussed some of the factors which can make or mar a life sciences GCC. What are some things to look at? How the relationship with the global parent as well as the local players, local geo affiliates. Strategic trust is extremely important. Changing behaviors, cultures, the encouraging the culture of speaking up. These are all the things which we learned today, which will help grow the life sciences GCCs further and also make India or help India become an emerging pharmaceutical innovation hub of this in this century. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, gentlemen, for a very compelling discussion on the role of GCCs in advancing global life sciences strategies.